I had never thought that I could be a film writer or a filmmaker. It just wasn't. I was a critic. That was my strength. That was my personality. And I look at Pickpocket and I said, well, here's this guy. He's in his room. He's writing a journal. He gets out. He does some stuff. He goes back in his room. I said, I could make a film like that. Now, what is a metaphor? A metaphor is the stand-in. It is not the problem itself. So the metaphor for a lonely boy is not a lonely boy. The metaphor for an unattractive girl is not an unattractive girl. It's something like the metaphor, like the problem, but not the problem itself. It's like two wires. You have the problem and the metaphor, and they have to get close enough for a spark to jump across. And if they're too far apart, there'll be no spark, and if they're on top of each other, there'll be no spark. So you have to tease them and play with the spark. Frankenstein. But how can you have a better metaphor than that? The metaphor essentially does the job. You can, or the walking zombies. It doesn't really matter how good it is anymore. The metaphor has such strength. Jaws, Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby. These are powerful, functional metaphors. And if you have a good problem and a good metaphor, a lot of the battle is won already. And a metaphor could be sometimes an occupation, taxi driver. It could be a historical moment in time, Waterloo, I suppose. It could be a certain kind of love story, Romeo and Juliet. But it has to be something that expresses your problem without being the problem itself. It's always handy to have a closeted homosexual in the group because you know the metaphor that will work for them, which is somebody involved in industrial espionage. Somebody who is secretly spying on his own company, getting paid by another company. And this is a great metaphor for a homosexual who hasn't told anybody, because you're actually talking about the problem without talking about the problem. What is it like to live a double life in which people who trust you are deceiving, like any spy. The kid had a very interesting problem, which was he had killed somebody when he was 16 in a car. It wasn't his fault, but he remembered that. It was a young 14-year-old child ran out in the street. And obviously that is something that stayed with him. And so we started trying to come, what's a metaphor for that? And the metaphor we came up with, going back and forth, was a professional woman in her 30s who had supposedly an abortion when she was young. But she has now come to realize that it wasn't an abortion, it was a child that was delivered and went into a adopted home or whatever in the marketplace. And because she sees this girl on the street, she said, that's my daughter. Boom. Now we're dealing with the metaphor of the man who killed the kid, because you have the woman seeing the daughter she killed, but the daughter is still alive. So that's going to work your metaphor. And then at that point, you just flip the tables and see it from the girl's point of view, and you're in business. The unattractive or overweight girl metaphor, often, this is a standard one, the ugly duckling, the Cinderella, whatever. And it's not terribly constructive for a young woman who feels herself unattractive to tell a story about a woman who feels unattractive. It doesn't, she can tell that story, but she's not going to learn much. What she has to do is put herself in the shoes of someone who thinks they are unattractive, someone who is bulimic, someone, who is injuring themselves and cutting themselves because they feel they're unattractive when they're not. Now, that's a good learning point. You can learn from that.
Let's meet again.